Let's go.
Yes, sir.
You are here and now with Brandon and Joe. I'm Joe.
And I'm Brandon.
All right,
Recording.
live.
All right. You are here and now with Brandon and Joe. I'm Joe.
And I'm Brandon.
And this is Here and Now, episode 24. We got a special guest today.
Yes, sir. We got Terry Keeven. What's
up,
happening, man?
Hey.
Our older cousin.
Yes, sir.
You didn't get the last name.
Yeah. So how's it been? How's business?
Good.
Everything
Well.
going good?
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's get right into it then, man. Let's talk about growing up. How was childhood and life as a child?
Getting right into it.
Well, I grew up out in Ferguson, and I don't know, man.
Crazy life.
Yeah, I ended up. I guess I was a pretty troubled kid because 10 years old, I ended up going into a mental facility.
No shit.
Really?
Mhm.
What was that for?
I was a real bad kid, and then I guess I had suicidal tendencies or something, and I was just causing a lot of trouble for my parents. So I went to a place called Hawthorne Psychiatric Hospital for kids
No shit.
under 18. Yeah, I went there for like 3 months, and then got out. And then when I was 14, I went back for another 3 months stint. And then growing up, I just always got in trouble. Got arrested a lot, went to jail a lot.
Been there.
Yeah, so I was just a real shithead. So, yeah,
How was Ferguson growing up?
it was shit, just like it is now. So, I mean,
Hasn't changed much.
after when those riots were happening, everyone was saying, "Oh, it was such a great place before that." And I'm like, "What? No,
No,
I
it's
fucking
always
grew
been
up out
shitty.
there, man. It was tough."
Yeah.
But it's all I knew. I didn't know it was shit. I didn't think of it that way. I just thought of it as home. And it wasn't until I met my wife, and she was not from the area, and she was down there a lot with me, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, this place is just different from what she was used to." I didn't see what the big deal was until I moved out, and then several years later, because my parents, they moved out of Ferguson, but they live in Florissant, and so as I would drive through Ferguson and whatnot, I would go, "Oh yeah, this is not how I live anymore."
Yeah.
And that's when I started noticing that, okay, yeah, maybe it was a little rough. But back then it was just the way it was.
Normal.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
didn't know. It's just all I knew.
So when did you move out of Ferguson?
When I was 19,
19?
yeah, and I moved from there and I went to the South County, a place called Oakville.
Yeah, I know that.
And then about 3.5 years ago, I moved to Arnold. And I'll probably live here for a long, long time.
Oh, so you were in Oakville for like 10 years or something around there?
I was in Oakville. We rented an apartment, I think, for a year or two. And then after that, we bought a home. And I lived there, I think, for 7 or 8 years. And then I bought another home. And I lived there for maybe 5 to 7 years. And then I bought this place 3.5 years ago.
Mm.
So
Now, growing up, did you ever express any like business side, like entrepreneurship, or
no.
how did that come about?
I think I was kind of forced into that. No, I didn't. I was just a total shithead. I dropped out of high school when I was 15 and a half and got my GED when I was 16. I did try community college out there at Flow Valley. I think 3 different times I tried, and I just like I didn't do well in school, in high school. I didn't do well with college either.
Yeah.
And so I just couldn't do it. And then took a job when I was 16, screen printing T-shirts.
Mm.
And
Now, what company was this that you were working for?
it was a company called Priority One. They're not around anymore, but I had some family that worked there, and they got me a job. They told me, "Hey, they don't care in this business. You can have all the tattoos and piercings. They don't drug test you. So, and then one day, if you work real hard, you can make $10 an hour." That was back when minimum wage was like 4 something. And so I thought, wow, that's perfect. I can do drugs and get tattooed, and no one cares. But after I was like, I don't know, 18, a couple years of that, I befriended all the guys in the shop. There was maybe 25, 30 employees. And I noticed all the guys were quite a bit older than me, and they were just not going anywhere. Smoking weed all the time, drinking all the time, going to their apartments, and just lived a life that I did not want. And so I started looking at that going, fuck, if I don't change, I'm going to end up just like these guys.
Mm-hmm.
And the owner told me that if he would make me a supervisor and pay me a lot more. I would just had to earn it. So I started striving for that. But that really wasn't until after I met my wife. When her and I started dating, she kind of straightened me out, and I just gave up all the stupid stuff I was doing. Just gave it all up. So no more drugs. I still drank real heavy. And then as I got older, I just kept falling off more and more and more. And then yeah, so she was like, she had 2 kids already, and she's like, I can't be with somebody who's a fucking derelict because I got these kids and stuff. So I decided that she was worth it and the kids were worth it. So I kind of gave it up, and I moved out of Ferguson, and I kind of cut off a lot of my friends, quit hanging out with some of the real bad ones that were into bad stuff. I was watching my buddies die, heroin overdoses, just one after the other. And so I gave all that up because I wasn't an addict or anything, but I was dabbling with heroin and cocaine and LSD and horse tranquilizers and pretty much anything I get my hands on. I think by the time I met her, within 3 to 6 months of us dating, I just dropped all the drugs. I didn't do any drugs after that. Popped a lot of pills and shit. So I just gave it up. And then I did end up getting a supervising job. And after a couple years, they went out of business, and I took a job. I was probably about 21. I took a job with another company, and they were a real small little business. And I had a business plan for me to go into business for myself, and reality slapped me in the face. I had no assets, so I couldn't borrow against anything because I didn't own anything, and I had no money. And so even though I had like a game plan, a business plan, I couldn't go through with it. And somebody heard that I needed a job, and so this company called me and hired me as their general manager and paid me more money than I ever made. And I presented my business plan to them and said, well, I was going to do this on my own, but I can't do it. Take a look at it. Maybe we can implement it here at your place. And so that's what we started doing. And then I want to say within a year, I took them from there was like 6 to 8 employees. And then within a year, we moved out of that building and got in a building maybe 6 times the size. And they were over 50 employees within a year or so. We really grew that company. And the owner never gave me any credit for it. And I didn't understand that. I was a cocky kid. And so I left. We got in a big fight about it. I left. And that's when I started my company. And then, yeah, that's how I got started.
Now, what gave you the confidence to be like, all right, I could do this. I could do this myself. The fact that you grew their business.
Yeah. So I saw that. Yeah, it was so much easier though to do it for someone else because I wasn't risking anything.
Yeah.
So I got to kind of implement the plan without taking on any of the risks. And I watched him take on all the risks. And I saw that it worked. But again, even at that point, I didn't have any money, or I had owned a home by then, but I didn't have a lot of equity in it. And I actually went to Uncle Ronnie and asked him for money to start the company, and he told me no. And then he told me he would give it to me. I think I was asking for like $50,000. He said, but my dad had to guarantee the loan. And so if I didn't pay it back, it was on my dad. My dad told me there's no way. So then I went to Mark, Nancy's husband. And I remember I was going to go there and ask him for money, and I guess he knew that. So when I went in his home, first thing he said was, "Hey, if you're here for money, I ain't got it. So what do you want to talk about?" And I was like, "Oh no, I'm not here for money." So then I just had to make up some shit that I was there to hang out with him or something.
So you're
But
like,
yeah,
about this weather.
I was definitely there for money, and nobody would give it to me, and rightfully so. They shouldn't have. I would have failed miserably, especially with just getting a handout.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm so grateful that nobody gave me anything, and I had to do it on my own. So I was about 20, 23, and that's when the housing market was going up. And so we bought our home for like 144 grand. And then by the time I wanted to start the business, I think it was worth like 170 something. So I pulled out all the equity in the home. And then I took out a $10,000 credit card. And then I was able to, because I had been in the screen printing business for a while, I knew a lot of the vendors and they trusted me. So some of them gave me some really lucrative terms. And so I was able to pretty much, they were financing some of the equipment to me without banks and stuff like that. And so between all those things, I was able to get going and get started. But I mean, it was a rough go.
Now, was that personal credit or did you pull out a business line of credit?
It was, well, so when you do that, you can't get a business line of credit because the business is brand new.
Mm-hmm.
No one's going to do this. You have to personally guarantee everything. So I had to put all my personal assets up. You know, even to this day, I mean, they want personal guarantees on everything I do. My lease at the building I'm at, I have to personally guarantee it. So does my wife. So if we don't pay the rent, they come after me personally. So that's the way it goes. They always want a personal guarantee. After so long, you can get away with it. If you go from like an LLC to a S corp or C corp and blah blah blah, and separate you from the business, there's other ways to go about it. But when you're typically a small business owner, most of them are LLCs, and most of them are personally guaranteeing everything. So that's why if you go out of business, you if you were over leveraged, you'll fucking lose everything.
Right.
Your home, your car, everything you have until that debt is paid back. So that's why it's so fucking risky.
Yeah. Shit.
Now, what type of personal characteristics do you feel like you have to like, because not everybody's willing to go out and take that risk, you know? So how did you know that you wanted to take that risk? And like, what was it, like something to do with your characteristic that you had? Was it drive?
I was always real driven and hungry, but I was stupid also. Looking back now, I can't believe I did what I did.
Yeah.
And I want to do it again. Like now that I know what I know, if I was in the same situation, I probably wouldn't risk it all. And as I get older, I risk less because I have a family. I'm settled where I'm at. And so I don't go all in anymore. I used to make decisions and put all my chips on the table and say, fuck, if it works, we're good. If it doesn't, we're fucked.
Well, you had nothing to lose.
At the time, well, now see, you could look back at that and go, shit, you ain't got nothing to lose. You're a young guy, blah, blah, blah. But you don't see it that way because in my world, I had everything to lose. I had owned a home. I had cars. I had this. Now, compared to where I am now, you say, oh, God, yeah, I had nothing to lose. But in my mind at the time, that was all I knew.
That was everything.
That was everything.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, in my mind, I could have lost it all. And I spent many nights crying myself to sleep because it just never seemed like it was going to work out. It was way harder than I ever thought it would be. It cost way more, and it took way fucking longer before I hit any sort of success that I thought I may. And then it just compounded and compounded and compounded, and now we're more successful than I ever thought I would be. So
Now, this is before YouTube, right?
yeah.
Before the internet kind of got to be what it is today. So how did you learn all these things
Reading.
to like start a business?
Books. I've been reading like crazy since probably I was about 17, 18 years old. Now back then, I used to be like I have anarchy tattooed on my arm. I was all into that.
Rebellious kid.
Yeah, the whole Rage Against the Machine, fuck
Yeah.
the system, and I was a fucking wannabe rebel without a cause. I didn't even know what system I was fighting against. I just knew that was cool. And so fuck authority.
I grew up the same way.
Yeah, so I was reading like socialist books and shit like that, and like, oh, I was all into that shit. And now I'm like, I'm totally against all that shit. And I won't cover up the anarchy tattoo because to remind me that I was a fucking shithead.
Yeah.
So, but it was reading, and then I ended up switching from reading books on socialism and rebelling to business books, shit like that, and lots of tapes. Back then it was tapes, so lots of tapes. I remember the first like tape set that I listened to was Carlton Sheets. It was the No Money Down, How to Buy Real Estate with No Money Down. And I think that was the first time that it got me realizing that you can create wealth out of nothing if you just work your ass off and get creative. And then it went from that to I got really big at one point when I was younger into Tony Robbins. I mean, listen to all his tapes and all that shit, and it just got my mind going in that direction. And then it was just reading one book after the next. And I still do that. I read on average now like 60 books a year. Oof, it's a lot.
That's
Now, are you actually reading these books? Are you doing like the Audible?
I actually read them. So I don't do the Kindle thing. I read the hard copies.
See, I wish I could do that, man, but like I got like my ADHD brain. Like I'll start thinking of something else while I'm in the middle of reading.
I do that too, and then
How do you combat that?
You fucking stay focused, and then you realize that you just read 3 pages. You have no idea what the fuck you just read. So then I got to start over. So it takes me a lot longer to read through a chapter in a book than it probably should. So I end up spending, because I read out of 6 different books usually every day, Monday through Friday. And then I give myself the weekends off, unless I want to. But so I read out of 5 or 6 different books every day, and I probably spend 2 to 3 hours a day reading, and I only read 1 chapter out of each book. But it takes me so fucking long because if I realize like, I'm reading something, and the next thing you know, I start thinking about my business and something, and I'm like, oh fuck, I have no idea what I just read, so I got to start over. So,
Are you the type to take notes as you read as well,
or highlight?
No.
or highlight?
Nope. Yeah. Because I try to read for enjoyment. So I actually sometimes I get frustrated. I'll pick up a book and it's so friggin' boring, like so boring, but I won't put it down because now at that point I read it as fast as I can just to get through it. I have this thing where if I start something, I don't want to stop until I'm finished. So I'll read some boring books. Usually every year there's like 3 or 4 I wish I wouldn't have picked up.
Yeah.
Just because they're so boring.
Yeah.
You know?
I do that. I use Audible to get my books, and I'll return books if like the reader, the voice is not like there's some boring ass books on there, you know? But yeah, so I'll listen to like books back to back, like 3 or 4 or 5 times, you know?
Yeah.
Just to even obtain a little bit of it. And then sometimes I'll like pick up things that I didn't get the first time and be like, oh shit, I didn't even know that was in this book.
Yeah.
You know?
I've done that. I did the Audible thing, and then I would go to what I found is YouTube actually has a lot of books.
Yeah.
You just watch them for free. You don't have to pay the Audible thing, so I canceled my Audible thing. But I also found that you don't get any of the new books. It could take years and years and years before the new ones are on YouTube. And it's probably illegal that people are putting them on there, but they are. But then I started, I don't know, I started more like listening to podcasts and stuff. So if I'm going to listen to something, since I read so much, I don't want to listen to any more books. So I just watch podcasts. In my truck, I'll usually listen to Joel Osteen.
Okay.
And so I'm always trying to learn something. So I don't, again, on the weekends, I try to give myself like time off where I'm not so fucking disciplined all the time, and just, I want to live too. So
what is 3 books off top that have affected your life the most?
Well, the first one that I read that was more business minded was or that really made a difference for me was Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. And then after that, at one point, I read The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. That made a huge impact on me. And then more recently, in the last 4 or 5 years, I read the Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey, and that was a big game changer for me.
Yeah, my girl just started seeing a financial advisor, and that's who he recommended to her to look after. Like
Dave Ramsey?
Yeah, Dave Ramsey. I used to watch his YouTube stuff. He's definitely against debt is one of his big things. Like never get into debt, which actually I wanted to talk to you about. How important do you think, like, do you feel like there is bad debt or good debt?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that Dave Ramsey is really good for your average Joe who works a job or whatever. He can, maybe your person who isn't that disciplined, because he's like totally against credit cards and I'm not.
Yeah, me neither.
But I am against having credit card debt, but I feel like if you can pay it off each month, it's not a big deal. Now, his theory behind that, from what I understand, is when you use credit, you spend more. So even though you can pay it off each month, you're actually spending more than you would have if you were actually using cash. And I do believe that it's a psychological thing. But I also am in a situation where I don't have to worry about that, and I still pay it off each month. And yeah, I probably do spend a lot more money, probably thousands more than I would if it was cash, because I would have an emotional attachment to the cash. I don't want it to leave.
Right.
Whereas when you use a credit card, you just swipe it and you don't even think about it. You got to pay it later. But I'm in a situation where I don't worry about that. And I do like my 2% cash back. And that's how I pay for it. We go on a family trip every year. I take all my kids and their boyfriends, and that's how I pay for it, with all my cash back rewards.
Yep, same.
Yeah, free travel. Like, when's the last time you paid for a trip?
Yeah, it's
like
been a long time. I just use my points. It covers a lot too. Like just the sign up bonus covers a lot, you know?
Yeah. And as long as I do not pay yearly fees on a credit card, I do not, and I don't pay any interest because I pay it off each month. So I think Dave Ramsey's really good, and it got me going because we were making a lot of money, but I still had debt. Like, I was like, my business had lots of debt. I think it was like $500,000 when I started reading the Dave Ramsey book. I owed probably close to $500,000 on this house I'm in, and I probably had, I think I had a loan on my Escalade, and I had a loan on my truck. I had a loan on my Jeep. Shit, man, we had a loan on a fucking bed. Like buying an $8,000 bed, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, paying off a fucking bed? It's stupid. And then I realized, like, okay, so yeah, we make a lot of money, but it's all going toward these payments. And so after I read that book, I didn't necessarily follow his 7 baby steps, he calls them, like, to a T. I just kind of did it my own way, which he's really against, because he's the authority, and he thinks that if it's his way or the highway. But I did. Within a couple years, I got my company completely out of debt, and then I transferred everything I was doing with my company to our personal life, and then I got completely out of debt personally, including my house, which they say usually takes a long time.
Oh yeah.
Well, from the time I started to pay off my house, it took me, like, I don't know, 8 months. You know.
Did you go all in on the debt? Like, you're like, I'm gonna get rid of all this debt. I'm gonna put everything towards the debt.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like maxing out. You know, like I was telling you guys earlier, my company matched IRA. I was maxing out 529 plans for the kids. I was maxing out an HSA, and then I was putting a certain amount of money in my other investments. But then everything else went toward debt, within reason. My wife keeps me balanced. She's like, we're not going to live like Dave Ramsey says, beans and rice. She's like, we're not going to do that.
Can't do
you know.
Right,
so
right.
she goes, we got to live too. But I'm fortunate in the fact that I make a substantial income, and so I was able to just pay off everything really fast. And when it comes to the house, I couldn't find very many people who I admire that thought it was a good idea to pay off my home, because it was less than 3%, or it was hovering around 3%, and it was a 15-year mortgage, and I didn't care. I know that I could have invested all that money and done better in the long run and just let my mortgage ride out for 15 years. But it's a personal thing. I did not feel like I made it until I paid off my house. And I always have this thing being a business owner that here today, gone tomorrow. I'm not so foolish to think that what I'm doing right now is just going to last forever. I do understand the statistics and how most businesses do end up failing, even though we've been around for 14 years, anything can happen. And so I always had that fear that it can be taken from me. And the way I figured it was, well, if I pay off my house, they can't take it.
Right.
Yeah.
Just like everything else I have. And so what I found is when you have no debt, I mean, for me, I fucking love it.
It's
I mean,
freedom.
it's
you feel free.
total free.
Yeah.
Freedom. And now I don't have to make near the income I do. I don't feel like I'm obligated to make a certain amount of money because I have to service all this debt. I could live on a whole lot less,
Yeah.
you know, because I have no payments.
Yeah, that was my goal for this year, is to get out of debt. And I had a bike payment and a car payment, and I ended up just having to sell my bike because I just owed too much on it.
Which is hard to do.
It's hard to do. Yeah, it was. But you know what? The freedom and like I hated debt more than I loved my bike. I'll say that much, you know? And so now I just got to work on my car. But yeah, and I feel free just from paying my bike off. Like just getting rid of my bike, I feel that freedom. You know, I'm like, man, I'm that much closer to like financially being free. But let's go back a little bit. At what point did you realize like you could start paying yourself from your business? Because I know with myself, it's hard to take any money from my profits. Like I just want to invest it right back into the business, like all of it. So at what point did you realize that, okay, you can start paying yourself now?
From day one, I paid myself.
Really?
Yeah, I knew what I needed to make because my wife quit her job and I quit my job, and we had 3 kids at the time and 3 cars and 3 car payment, or at least 2 car payments, a house payment and all that. I couldn't just not pay myself, and I didn't have any sort of savings or anything when I started my company. It was hand to mouth, and I knew what we had to generate, and so I paid myself that, and that caused me to go into debt on the company. You know, instead of buying stuff with cash, I couldn't afford it because I had to pay myself. So I'd finance things as long as I could. And there was a point within like 5-6 years, I started thinking, oh my God, it's just always going to be this way. I'm always going to be paying debt off. I'm always going to be financing shit. And then at some point now, like we don't finance anything now. It's just, we save the money and we pay cash for it. Now, if I were to buy a building or something, I'd finance that. Very against the Dave Ramsey philosophy. But, you know, and my problem with the Dave Ramsey philosophy is he thinks businesses shouldn't carry debt either and blah, blah, blah. Well, if I didn't have debt in the beginning, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Right.
The debt is what allowed me to grow fast. If I had to wait 3 years to afford to pay for a piece of equipment with cash, that's 3 years I was missing out on able to grow my business.
Yeah.
And so I accelerated that by taking out debt. Those machines generated more income, which allowed me to pay it off and buy more machines and blah, 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 blah. And then eventually it got to the point where I was able to pay cash for equipment, but I didn't have to wait years. You know, I got our profitability up where you just, you know, within 6 weeks, you got the money and you buy a piece of equipment and you have no payment. And then you get to take the depreciation on it. And I used to take it all in 1 year and save on taxes, blah, blah, blah. Nowadays, since my taxes are so damn high, I usually spread it out for quite a bit longer. So,
yeah, the only good debt is debt somebody else pays for.
Is if I think that's fine as long as you know, consumer debt is terrible. Going into debt to buy a car, going into debt to go on a vacation, all that stuff is terrible. If you're gonna buy a home, that's one thing. If you're gonna and I don't know, just consumer
buying toys
debt.
and stuff,
buying toys and shit like that.
If it's not going to make you money, I feel like it's not good debt.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
That's how I feel about it.
So in the beginning stages of your business, was it just you and your wife, or did you guys have employees off the jump?
We had employees right away. So it was me and my wife, my brother, a guy named James, a neighborhood friend, still works for me today. And then eventually, I think a guy named Ryan that I grew up with, and my cousin Nico worked part-time for us, and then we just kept growing it from there. I think we had 2 or 3 employees in the beginning, and within a year we had like 7 or something, and
Oh wow.
and then it just kept going and going and going until we ended up with 48 employees. And then when COVID hit, we went down to 32, and we tried to get back up to 48. Not 48. We tried to get up to about 40 this year because during COVID we learned how to be more efficient. We realized we don't need 48 employees. We could probably do more than what we ever did before with about 40. But we couldn't get any employees because everyone wants to sit at home, get all this extra unemployment. And so we were struggling to get employees. So much so that in the last 2 weeks, I've literally given up $1 million worth of business. I had to let 325 of our accounts know that we can no longer service them because we couldn't get the staff. So
How do you make that decision? So you're just honest with yourself, and you're like, "There's no way we can get this done."
you try not to make. I tried not to. I tried handling all the business that we had, but it kept snowballing, and we kept getting further and further behind to the point where my larger clients started going, "Look, this isn't going to work for us. You're going to have to figure something out because we can't be waiting 15 days for our stuff." And so it was two weeks ago on Sunday. I just got back from Mexico on Sunday. I had some calls with some clients, and apparently people were pretty upset. Nobody wanted to let me know anything while I was on vacation, and I'm thankful for that because it would have ruined my vacation.
Yeah.
So by Sunday night, I realized what I had to do, and I put it all down on paper and had my wife print off a bunch of stuff. I did not want to wait till Monday. Normally my daughter handles all of our books. I asked my wife, "Hey, can you print off all these reports so I can look at it?" And I think by Sunday night around 11:30 or so, I realized what I had to do the next morning. I went in, got up really early, went in, and thought I was going to have a nervous breakdown. I was holding back tears, and I was shaking. It was pretty bad, but I had to do what I had to do, and the plan is to be even more profitable. Even though I gave away $1 million worth of business, it's only because I couldn't get the staff, but also my larger accounts are growing, and so I had to make a decision: am I going to keep them and grow with them, or am I just going to keep servicing all these smaller accounts? And if I only have, let's say, 35 employees right now, what's the best way to allocate those 35 employees? Do I service 350 clients, or do I service 26? And could we be more efficient if we only had 26 accounts? And could I get more out of them than I could? And that's what I decided to do.
It's kind of that 80-20 rule.
That's exactly what it is, because what I found is less than 10% of my clients generated over 80% of our business. So the other 300 and some odd accounts, I just said, you know what? We can't do this anymore. But I always try to do the right thing. And so I didn't just tell them, sorry, we're not going to work with you. Then I started interviewing competitors of mine. And I thought they'd all be excited. Hey, guys, I got all this business I'm just walking away from. You can just walk right into it. Most of my competitors right now told me they can't handle it. They're in the same boat as me. Damn. Wow. So I had to find somebody out of town. And I found someone out of town that I'm letting my clients know, hey, call this company, blah, blah, blah. And so, a lot of our clients had been with us for a long time. They don't remember even how to find a new vendor. They haven't had to in so long. And so I didn't want to put them in that spot, so I did it for them. And my hope is that if I turn out that I've made the wrong decision, that they will they'll remember that I didn't just leave them high and dry. I tried to find somewhere for them to land. I interviewed a bunch of companies and went with the one I thought would best suit my clients' needs. So that's what I did, because I find in business and in life in general that when you go all out and you do the right thing and you do more than what's expected of you, It always comes back.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to make it a point to do that all the time. And I feel like that's why we've grown so fast and to the point that we did is because people can trust me. They know I'm not in it just for myself. I make sure that first I take care of my employees, then I take care of my clients, and then third I take care of myself.
Mm.
So
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a good. I mean, that's leadership right there. You know, that's what you got to do. I mean, you're the top guy. So, do you ever doubt yourself? Like, is self-doubt a constant thing in your head, or is it something that you just got to push to the side?
constant.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Even with the success that I've had, you know, I can look around and look at my business and take pride in it. I can look at where I'm living and take pride in it. Look at everything I have in life and think that I'm pretty cool. I'm pretty awesome. Blah blah blah. And but I don't. I mean, I do, and I'm grateful for it. But I still have that feeling of fuck.
Mm-hmm.
It could all be. I'm just, you know, I figure 3 bad decisions away from losing everything.
Yeah.
And then I question some of the decisions I make. Now, over time, as you make more and more right decisions, you have more confidence in what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm still, for me personally, I'm still never 100% confident. I still always question if I'm doing the right thing, if I'm making a bad move. I make very calculated risks these days. Like I was saying earlier, I used to go all in, like put all my chips on the table, and if it worked, great. If not, I'm fucked. And I did that so many times, and it's always worked out. But I'm not willing to do that anymore. And that's one of the reasons I won't grow my business. We haven't grown our company in years because I don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
And what I had to realize is, you know, you could watch all the gurus out there and they say grow, 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 and more and more and more and more and more. Well, what I found is once you get to a certain level, for myself, I had to question why. Why would I keep growing? What is it about, what will the growth get me? Well, I guess it'll get me more money. I guess it'll get me more clout. What I realized is at this point, if I were to grow the business anymore, the main reason I would do it is for my ego.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to push that aside and say, well, that's not important to me as it used to be. It's not as important. When I was in my 20s and even early 30s, that was a big deal. I want to puff my chest out, say, hey, look what I did. I'm better than everyone thought I was, blah, blah, blah. But now I don't give a shit. I still do to a certain degree, and I'm starting to get over that as I get older. I'm 39 now, and it means less and less to me all the time. And I realize, like, yeah, there's always going to be someone out there that's got more, that's doing better, and that is smarter than I am, and better work ethic, whatever you want to call it. And I found that when you compare yourself to others, it's just so dangerous. It's not good for your psyche.
Mm-mm.
It's not good for your joy, your happiness. And so I have to remember that. Yeah, I might meet someone and they might have a lot more than me, and I just can't compare myself to them. As long as I'm doing what I want to do and I'm happy with where I'm at, that's all that matters. You know, if someone else wants to go out and kill it and blah, 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 that's fine. I spent 10 years doing that and trying to be the biggest, baddest. I just care a lot less now.
Yeah, that's good that you got that self-realization.
So what are you chasing now? More so like comfort and more time with the family and
Yeah, and I actually have. So when I meet people, they always say the same thing to me, whether it be vendors or clients or anyone. They say, I know you're a busy guy. Everyone says that. And I always think to myself, not really. Not really. I'm probably only, I only go into my office on average 15 to 20 hours a week is when I'm actually there. I don't run the day-to-day operations. And then the rest of my time I spend here. And now my wife says, oh, yeah, but you're working at home. Well, I don't see it that way because, yeah, I might be taking phone calls, answering emails and all that and talking to some of my staff at work. But I'm sitting in that hot tub, sitting on the deck. I'm in Florida
yeah,
doing all that. I don't have to be there. And that's kind of what I learned from that book, 4 Hour Work Week, is that shit, it's possible.
Yeah.
So I do have, I do spend a lot of time with my family, with my kids, way more than most people are able to. Spend a lot of time with my wife. Spend a lot of time now vacationing. Just bought a lake house. I'm sure I'm going to spend a lot of time out there. I spent a lot of time on this place because it's still fairly new to me.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I got a little land out here and a lake and all the shit that I ever wanted. So I spent a lot of time. Once I bought this house, I pretty much quit going to work and just fucking played all the time. And that got old. So I started going to work more. So now I'm just chasing memories and spending time with my family, spending time with my friends, making sure that that I don't know. I'm not really chasing things anymore. I have all the things I have more things than I ever thought that I would ever want or ever.
You
ever
definitely
had.
got a beautiful place, man.
Yeah.
This place is beautiful.
Yeah, so it's not about the things anymore. It's just about living life the way I want to, finding out what makes me happy, and just doing that. But I always have to have a goal still, and I have to, like, one thing that I've been putting off forever is like trying to get fit and lose weight. And I'm like, shit, man, I'm like 30 pounds overweight. I got to lose this fucking weight. So I'm going, all right, I got to start making this a priority. Like, usually people in my situation don't get like as heavy as I do because you're typically, if you're disciplined in one area and you're disciplined, it's just the way you live your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, dude, something's unbalanced because I put on all this weight. And I'm like, fuck, I got to get that under control. It doesn't make sense for a guy like me to have put on so much weight. And I recognize that. And I'm like, that's a fucking problem. So right now I'm going, okay, I'm going to focus on that. As long as I always have a goal that I can try to achieve, then I feel fulfilled. I feel like I'm doing something. I don't wake up and go, now what? And you can do that, especially if you have a lot of success early on. You feel pretty fucking empty.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, what? You've already achieved everything that you wanted to. And I struggled with that for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, they say like that's why a lot of times when people retire and they don't have anything to do, they
die.
Yeah,
They die, yeah.
shortly after
do.
because they don't have purpose anymore.
Yeah,
you
I'll
know?
never, ever, ever retire. I won't. I may not own my business anymore, but I'll always be doing something.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that way when I got with my business, and it was on somewhat of autopilot. And I was spending less and less time at the office, but yet my company was constantly growing. I started doing other things. I was getting bored.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I spent like 3 years just like writing a bunch of articles, and I was getting published in all these magazines all the time. And so that was kind of fun for me, but after a few years I got bored with that. So I quit writing articles. I studied to be an SBA business mentor.
Mm.
So I had to take like 3 tests, get interviewed 3 different times, and I got accepted. And so I had an office downtown St. Louis, and I had an office in Kirkwood where like 2 or 3 days a week I'd have to be at those offices. I would meet with small business owners and pretty much show them where they're fucking up. And I was the youngest person in the whole U.S. that ever got accepted as an SBA
shit.
mentor.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I didn't even know you were doing that.
Yeah, that lasted, I don't know, probably a year. And then I got bored with that. And then, well, what happened with that is I realized I was pretty good at it. And I was like, fuck, it's like, essentially I'm a consultant, but it was a volunteer gig. And most of the guys that were also doing that were already retired. They were doing that just to kind of keep themselves busy, keep them within arm's length of the business world. And but I was still running a business. And so I was like, man, I'm pretty good at this. I had a boss doing that, and I wasn't used to having a boss. Same way with the writing. I had bosses. Like every magazine I wrote for, I had to answer to the editor, the chief editor, and I didn't like that.
Yeah.
You know, because he'd tell me what to do. And they were always women. They would tell me what to do, how to do it, when the deadlines were. They tell me what to write about, and I just got sick of that. Like, so I quit that. And so I found I don't do well with bosses.
Oh yeah.
Or just like when I was a kid, maybe it was
Yep.
something always instilled in me. I was just a bit of that rebel thing where I don't like authority.
Yeah.
And so I found like, fuck, I don't have to put up with this shit. I'm my own boss at work. Why do I have to do these other things and have bosses? So, so I quit doing that with the SBA and I started consulting, and I would charge for it. And then my wife didn't like that because I was traveling and going to other companies out of town and shit and helping them with where they're fucking up. And so I did that for a while. And I think, again, that was just to prove to myself that I could do it. And then at some point I got bored again. And then I started a handyman business. And then I grew that to, I think we had like 4 or 5 employees and blah, blah, blah. And then I got bored with that. And so after like 2 years, I ended up giving it to one of the employees who was my best friend. He still is to this day. And then he took it and he ran with it. And then he just did shut that business down after like 5 years and started a new one with a partner. And it's growing like crazy. So, yeah. So I do find myself getting really bored. And I found like, I was fishing and shooting guns a lot and drinking a lot. And I was like, fuck it. I found that you can only fish. So fishing and shooting guns or whatever hobbies you have, they're only really cool because you don't get to do them all the time because they're a luxury.
Right.
And when it becomes available to you 24/7, it loses its flair and it just becomes some other thing. And then I get bored with it. And at least that's my personality.
Yeah.
So, so the thought of retirement just scares me to death. I will never, ever do it. Like, I like the way it is now. Even though I have days that can be pretty stressful, I know that's what keeps me on my toes. I know it keeps me feeling alive, like I'm doing something. When I have hard decisions to make or figure something out, it keeps me kind of in the game and, not getting, so I don't get bored. So even though I hate the stressful days, I know they're good for me overall.
So what are your, so do you have like daily goals, 5-year goals, 10-year goals? Like, do you set up goals like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. And so I write them every year. I redo them, and I put them in a Illustrator, and I'll write them out, and then I'll bring home at the beginning of the year like an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, where I set up all these bookmarks, and I give them to my daughter. She cuts them up for me in bookmark format, and then she laminates them, and then those are my bookmarks for the year.
Wow!
And since I read so much, I have to see them every day, all day long. And so before I open up a new book, I always look at it and check all my goals off for the year. It's the yearly goals. So I do that. And then when it comes to the 5 and the 10-year thing, mostly those goals are all about investing. I want to invest a certain amount of money. I want my portfolio to look like this, blah, blah, blah. My wife and I pretty much have our whole lives planned out financially. This is what it's going to look like. And then at this age, we're going to buy this condo in Florida. And at this age, we're going to buy this lake house, which is, we're right there. We're doing that. By this age, we're going to have the debt paid off. And it's all spelled out and it's all written down. And so we can constantly look at it. And then as far as daily goals go, like I have a thing where they went from like goals, like, so at first, like working out, it's a goal, right? Because it's hard. It's something you're not already doing. Getting up earlier and reading X amount of books. It's a goal because, okay, you're not doing it now. So you got to strive to do those things. But like some of those things are not goals for me anymore. It's just habits. It's just turned into something that I just fucking do. I don't have to go, okay, I'm going to get up at 3:30 in the morning and read books and work out. No, I just do it every fucking day. I don't feel necessarily proud anymore. Like, okay, yeah, I killed it today. No, it's just what I fucking do. So that's what I do.
So do you wake up at the same time every day?
Typically, yeah. It's usually between 3:30 and 4:30.
And you never let yourself slip? Like, I want to sleep in today.
I found that if I do, it's because I had drinks the night
too many
before.
drinks.
And so I cut myself off from drinking during the week. Now, this last Thursday, I went to a restaurant. Fuck, there was like 16 of us, and I drank way too many margaritas. So yesterday, I don't think I got up till 7 a.m. I was never hungover because I went to bed early enough, but I sure as shit wasn't getting up at 3:30.
I like how you think 7 a.m. is late.
Yeah, I'm like, damn, I
that's
woke up
pretty
at
late.
7 today. I'm like, damn.
No,
yeah, you're like,
that's
I woke up
pretty
so late, man. 7 a.m.
Yeah. Well, typically I do, and I don't set an alarm or anything. My body just gets up. 3:30 to 4:30. I'm just up, and it all depends on when I go to bed. I know my body needs between 5 and 6 hours of sleep, and then I just naturally get up. And so I like that, getting up so early, because the rest of my house is sleeping.
Yeah.
Everything's dark, everything's quiet. I get all that time for myself. So I'm not, see, if I did that, let's say in the evenings instead, let's say I would say, okay, I'm going to do all my reading and my working out after I get home from work. Well, I'm taking time away from my family that I could have been spending with my family. So I go, well, at 3:30 in the morning, my family's sleeping. They don't get up till, for school days, like 6 something. So I got several hours in the morning that is just mine, and I'm not taking that time away from my family.
Yeah.
And I started that a long time ago because I was, I just knew it was important. I want my family time to be there. So the only way I figured I can get all this stuff in was to get up early as fuck. And so that's what I would do.
Yeah.
And so it just became a habit, and it's just something I've been doing for years and years and years.
Did you start that before the family, or was it something that you realized you needed to do
after the family?
Yeah, because you got to take care of yourself before you could take care of anybody else. So you waking up early gives you time to think and really focus on what you need to
First
do.
thing I do when I wake up is I go over my finances. Well, after I get my cup of coffee, go over my finances every day. Every day. And to the point I don't even have to anymore. Like I know what's in all my accounts. I know this, I know that. So, but I do it anyways, just to make sure, like, I don't know, the money's still there when I wake up in the morning. And then after that, I pray and I spend time thinking, and then I read the Bible, and then I read a couple of devotionals, and then I read a book on business, and then I work out. I'll run on the treadmill, and then after that, I'll lift weights, and then after that, I get in the sauna and I read another book, and I make sure that book is a book on like some sort of history. So currently, I'm reading about Abraham Lincoln's life. So that book stays in my sauna. And you always know my sauna books because the heat and shit and the moisture, it just fucks the books up. Fucks the books up. Pretty much when I'm done, by the time I'm done reading the book that sits in my sauna, I got to throw it away. Like the pages are falling out.
You should make something out of those, man. Like frame them up or something.
And then in the evening, I try to read another book before I go to bed. And that will usually be on more like family stuff. So right now I'm reading a book on marriage, or I might read a Christian book, or I might read some sort of spiritual book, or a book on raising children, or something like that. So I try to only read a business book, just out of one each day. I don't want everything I read about to be business, because then I find that I get really unbalanced, and I feel it's important what's coming into your brain. At least for me, it gets me thinking one way. So I always try to make sure I'm always reading books on different subjects every day, so I don't get too carried away. Because there was times when all I was doing, I was reading nothing but business, and then I was just aggressive as hell with business, and I forgot about my family. I forgot about my wife. So next thing you know, I had problems in my marriage or with my kids or whatever. So now I try to keep a rotation going, so my mind is always, oh yeah, don't forget, I'm married, and my wife and I don't have a good relationship just because it just so happened to be that way. We work
on it,
like constantly. So I don't want to, forget about that, and so I keep the ideas coming, with reading about it.
Yeah, because my problem is like I read nothing but self-help books, and it comes to the point where I feel like I'm just picking on myself now. Like I'm just like looking at every flaw every day because I'm reading these books. I'm like, yeah, I'm fucking up here, this, that, and the third. So I feel like I need to do that myself. Is just like not just read self-help books, you know.
Yeah, that's how I was for a long time too. There was a time when all I read about was finance.
Yeah.
I mean, I got so into that to the point now when I talk to people about finance, they want advice or something, and I go over everything. They're like, "How the fuck do you know all this shit?" I'm like, "Dude, I read so much on finance, and then all the podcasts I listen to are finance." One of my best friends owns a brokerage firm. He only deals with high net worth individuals. He's going to be over here next week, actually, drinking coffee with me, and we go over finance and shit like that. What better to learn from a motherfucker like that?
Right.
You know? So, and I meet with my accountant, and I go, "Hey, I was reading about this, that, and the other thing. Is this true? And how can we apply it? Blah, blah, blah." Or I meet with my broker. "Hey, I don't like this, and let's change this and that and the other," all from books that I've read and podcasts that I listen to. So yeah.
Now, going back to the beginning stages of your company, like, how did you get rid of distractions? Like the friends that were still trying to party and hitting you up on the weekends to go to the bars. Was it till you found your wife to kind of like...
I did still do all that. I never gave up on all that. I mean, man, I was drinking fucking 5-6 days a week in the beginning of my company, and I justified it by I'm working all the time and I'm stressed, and that's how it was a stress reliever. Man, after 5 o'clock, I mean, I was there till midnight, 1 a.m., but I was getting fucked up. But not just drinking. I mean, I was drinking and working. By the end of the night, I'm fucking stumbling around. And then I'd be up at 6 a.m. doing it again, sort of thing.
Shit.
I was pretty unbalanced. And there's times, that's why I try really hard now not to be unbalanced. There's times we have to be. I feel like if I didn't put in all those hours in the beginning, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. I'm just thankful that those days are over. And that's why I go, ugh, I don't want to ever do that again.
Right,
you know?
right.
It was hard. But I still saw my friends. I still drank a lot, partied and all that. So yeah, I just the drug thing was gone. I wasn't doing shit like that. And I was pretty unbalanced, man. I could have been a much better father and husband in the beginning. But the problem is when you're young and you're aggressive and about business and whatnot and your career, you get tunnel vision. At least I did. And that's all I focused on, and not realizing that my family needed me. And thank God my kids turned out fine, because the oldest ones now are 21 and 23, which one's about to be 21. They are really good, grounded kids. I guess that came from my wife, because my wife's stay-at-home mom, and their dad is in the picture too, and he's a great dude. Him and I get along really, really well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, him and his fiance come over here and party with us and shit. Like,
oh, no shit.
Yeah, we all get along.
Yeah, that's
like me,
super cool.
It's like, I'm like I remember they were leaving one time. Him and my wife were hugging and this and that, and I'm like, that is so strange that she's hugging her ex, the father of her kids, and I'm like totally cool with it, you know. And then I followed up with a hug, you know. Like we really like those guys. It's a weird dynamic, but it works well for us. Matter of fact, I probably text him, or he texts me like almost every day.
No shit.
Yeah, well, we send stupid fucking memes to each other. So that's all it is.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like that's how like close him and I are.
Yeah, that's
now, we're not like
awesome.
best pals or anything, but I mean, we're definitely not strangers.
Yeah.
But my wife has been a stay-at-home mom for the last 15 years. And so she's done a really good job with raising the kids, and that's probably why our kids are so good, because I don't think it's because of me. You know?
Yeah.
Has she always supported you with starting the company?
For the most part. There was one time when things looked pretty bleak and she wanted me to sell and take a job, and I told her no. And she said, she did this whole thing where she like, this is me washing my hands of this decision. So when your whole family is out on the street because you want to play a big shot money business guy, just remember this, that I had nothing to do with this decision. I'm the one that wanted to sell the business, get what we can out of it, and just take jobs. And that was the only time I can remember where she wasn't supportive. But again, rightfully so.
Yeah.
When you looked at all the facts,
Yeah, she was definitely trying to do what was right for the family.
She was trying to do what was right.
Yeah.
And I was just pig-headed, and I had an ego, and I wanted to prove I had something to prove. And so she was right. Everything she said was right. But I was just too fucking stubborn to go along with it. And thank God, because now I'll bring it up from time to time, and we kind of laugh about it, you know. And I'm like, man, can you imagine if I would have done what you wanted me to do? We would not be where we're at.
Yeah.
You know, I'd be working some job making 80 to 100,000 a year, and we'd be living like a normal life. Whereas I don't, and there's nothing wrong with that, but we live beyond our wildest dreams.
Yeah.
And so that's, I don't know, it's kind of cool.
That does go back to your anarchy tattoo, man. It goes back to the freedom that you wanted.
Yeah.
You know, like that's probably where you are today is because of that like freedom that you always wanted.
Yeah.
You know. Now, did this whole time now have you always, does it always feel like you're calculated, or does it actually feel like you're winging it and it's just working out?
Everything I do is very calculated.
Okay. So you don't have that like I'm just winging it type of feeling?
Not anymore.
Okay.
Used to.
When did you get rid of that feeling? Because I feel like I'm at that point now a little bit where I feel
we're
like
just
I'm
winging it.
Winging it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, several years in or so. I can't pinpoint it, but I've always taken calculated risks, but I would always look at them and go, fuck. I only got a 10% chance that I'm gonna win here.
Yeah.
But I always won.
Yeah. Because you can only calculate so much. You know, you don't know what the future's going to hold.
There's still risks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, now instead of going all in, I might only put, 10% of my chips on the table. That way, if I do lose, I didn't lose everything. And I've never lost. Never. Up to this point, every decision I've made has always turned out very well, and I think that's a lot because of my spirituality. I think a lot of that has to do with that's where all my peace comes from, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I never put myself first. I always take care of other people, and I think our clients and our employees and our friends see that. And so I usually don't have very many people upset with me or thinking I screwed them over or anything like that, because I go out of my way to make sure that they're taken care of before I am. And I can't remember who said it. It was either Zig Ziglar or Dale Carnegie. One of them said, if you help enough people get everything they want out of life, then you will get everything that you want out of life. And I found that to be very, very true. Very true.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you get what you give type attitude. And it's funny, it's so funny to me that how much religion and these self-help books, they all are the same like type of ideology, you know what I'm saying?
And
well like what I'm saying is like tithing, like they say you give, that whole saying, like you give what you get, or you get what you give. Well, I read a self-help book that also said something like that too, is like if you want to make a sale, you got to help somebody make a sale. And it's just crazy like how that all ties in together.
That's when I came back to God. Was as I was reading all these books, as I fell back. I mean, we were really involved in our church at one point. My wife and I played bass in the church band. I was a council member at the church. My wife helped with the books at the church and stuff like that. Me and my buddy taught Sunday school at the church, and then some unfortunate events happened, and then my wife and I kind of stepped back from church, and we stepped back for years. I want to say 5 to 7 years. We just and I started thinking there is no God. And then I started, some of my church friends thought that I would surely go out of business because I wasn't honoring God anymore. And I didn't. As a matter of fact, I started making more money than I ever did. And I wasn't giving any of it to the church or any charities or anything. And I started realizing that, okay, maybe God doesn't care about our finances as much as I thought he did, because I'm making more now than I've ever made as an atheist, as somebody who denounced Jesus and God and thought it's all BS. But as I was reading all those self-development books, I found that because I did know the Bible pretty well already, that a lot of their ideas came from the Bible. They're just regurgitated.
Yeah.
And they all do, like you said, they say the same thing. All the principles are the same. And then I started getting into some weird spirituality books, I forget what it's called, but essentially the thinking things into existence and this and that. And,
Think and Grow Rich, maybe.
well, that was a good one. Napoleon Hill. I've read everything Napoleon Hill. No, but it gets weirder than that. Like, so I went to some really weird spiritual store and bought some pretty crazy books. But I saw similarities between that and the Bible and what Jesus says too. Jesus says, "As a man thinks, so he is." And and so I started noticing that all of my favorite authors and the people I look up to in my life, I just noticed they all had similarities. They're all Christians. So I thought, man, maybe I should look into that again. And so I did. And one thing leads to another, and it became a part of me again. And now I'm all in. Again, I realized, okay. And I'm so glad that I stepped away, because it made me see things because now it used to be, well, you got to tithe and you got to do this so that I can get back, right? Be blessed tenfold. And I always put a lot of emphasis on finances, and it's always kind of been my thing. And now I kind of think that, I don't think, at least for me, God doesn't care so much how much money I make or this and that. And it's like, so I don't do it to get something out of it. Like, oh, I got to be a Christian, so otherwise God will take all my wealth away. Now it's like I do it because I want to do it, because I feel like it's the truth, and I want to walk in the truth versus, lies.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah. I always, I thank God every day. I haven't been to church and all that in a while, but I still always am so grateful. Like, I always pray to God, and I definitely always put God first and stuff. So what are we doing time wise?
I don't know. Let's see.
We typically like to go for an hour.
I gotta take a piss.
We at 2 hours?
No. We're at an hour right now.
All right. Well, that's a good note to end it on then, huh? You got any more questions?
Yeah, one last question. So, how do you view success? Like, what does success mean to you now compared to what it meant, let's say, 10 years ago?
So I think 10 years ago it was more it was I'm probably going to sound, I don't know how I'm going to sound on this thing.
Fuck it.
but because finance is a big part of my life, and I've always been fascinated with it. And so in the beginning it was, I don't know, to have lots of money, right? And it was to become a pillar in the business community that people looked up to me. That was success to me then. Now, I don't think that now is, it's not that. It's having enough so that your basic needs are taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
But it's knowing what you want out of life and dreaming, always be dreaming about what you want your life to look like, and actually living out those dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And I've realized now that it has very, very, very little to do with money. Very little. The money is simply a tool to get you the things you need and want out of life, but it has nothing to do with if you're successful or not. If that were the case, why would all these rich and famous people be killing themselves or on drugs?
Exactly.
The money's not the answer, and I've found that. And I think what it takes is actually getting some of that success, that financial success, before you realize, oh, that's
not what it is.
It's just like they say, it's true, but you got to find out for yourself.
Yeah.
And I had to find out for myself. So now, like, I don't feel like you have to own a business to be successful in life. You don't have to make lots of money to be successful in life. I think that there's a lot of business owners or executives out there that are failures. They might make lots and lots of money, but they're on their 5th marriage. Their kids hate them. Well, how successful is that?
Right.
A friend of mine told me a while back, now he's older than I am, he's in his like 60s, and he told me a while back that he said his biggest fear is that at his funeral, people are going to come there and say he was such a good businessman.
Mm-hmm.
He does not want to be remembered as that. He wants people to come there and say, that guy would do anything for anybody, and he treated everybody the same. That made a big impact on me when he told me that a couple years ago. It made me relook at my stuff and go, yeah, and it's so weird as you get older, your points of view change, your the things that you find important change.
Mm-hmm.
So I think as long as you're loving on other people, love people, and you know, covering your basic needs, enjoy what you do for a living. They say, you know, if you love what you do for a living, you never work a day in your life. I find that to be very true. I don't feel like I work because I love what I do. And just to know what you want and get it, you know. So I'm always striving for that. I don't think of myself as successful because there's so many things that I think I should be doing, or things that I've let fall off, like I said, with my health and stuff. And I'm like, that's not success to me. Success is not being overweight, and I know I can do something about it, so I should probably do something about it. And then once I accomplish that, it'll be the next thing. So always having goals and enjoying life, and make sure you're good to other people. That's what I think.
Yeah, and it's like,
that.
when
that.
Uncle Ricky died. He's on my mom's side. Some guy said he was the man. He was like a man's man. Like he was like, what did he say? He was the man. Forget what he said, but something along the lines.
High praises.
Yeah, high praises. And you know, my Uncle Ricky, he was in prison for 12 years for selling weed and shit. So a lot of people could have viewed him as a bad, you know, as a bad guy, like down the wrong path. But this guy put on roofs for poor people for free, out in Granite City. You know, he did a lot for his community, and I like to see him remembered like that. You know, it wasn't about money. It wasn't about the bad shit that he might have done in his life. It was about how he affected, you know, the people. The less unfortunate around him. And I always really liked what they said about him like that, you know? So yeah, I agree.
Definitely. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up there. I mean, we could talk to you for hours and hours and hours, and we'd love to have you on again sometime. We're at an hour.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
okay.
we're good.
Are you on social media at all?
Just Facebook.
Just Facebook.
Yeah, I don't get into all the stuff.
Yeah. Well, are you taking new clients or anything like that? Can anybody reach out to you?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't want any new clients.
Yeah.
I never plug my company on anything that I do, or I don't do that anymore because, like I said, I've been blessed, man. I got more business and I know what to do with. I'm not interested at the time to grow the business anymore because I'm in a spot that I'm really happy and comfortable. So like I was telling you guys earlier, I had to cut 320 some odd accounts loose in the last 2 weeks because I just can't handle it all. You know, a lot of business guys say, well, you're stupid. You should grow. Well, it's not what I want. Yeah. So that's part of being happy is, you know, what is it that you want out of life, and knowing that and going for that, not worrying about what other people say you should do. I found a lot of times the guys that are telling me that, not all of them, but a lot of times the guys that are telling me that, they ain't doing shit themselves. Yeah. So I'm like, well, you grow your business to a $10 million a year business, and then I'll look at your life and see what you have to say and see if you're happier. And until you do that, I'm not going to take your advice because you haven't been where I am, or you haven't been to where I want to be. You're not there. So why am I going to just have what you have, which I don't want? Yeah. I know what I want. And so, so I'm not into... I'm not taking on any new business.
All right, cool. Well, Terry Keeven, everybody.
Yes, sir.
This has been episode 24 Here and Now podcast. Like and subscribe. Cool. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks, folks.
Yes,
You are Here and Now.
with Brennan and Joe. I'm Joe.
And I'm Brandon.
Here is now